Hey there guys, ZMO73 here, bringing you another week's worth of Advent of the Demon King spoilers. We got a lot of interesting stuff, as well as some unusual support and a new ruler. So let's just go ahead and dig right in. We got 20 cards to cover, and so let's get to it as fast as we can. So first up in light, we have Gem Jail, which costs 1 double X, and then as an additional cost to play this card, banish X gems, and you remove target X target resonators from the game. So this is very interesting in the fact that it costs, so say you wanted to, you have to pay this X twice with will, and then you also have to banish X gems. So essentially, if you wanted to, say, kill 2 creatures, you'd have to pay 1, then 2 twice, and 2 gems to remove 2 resonators. That is a lot. That is really, really expensive. It's suboptimal, and in my opinion, you might as well just be doing a board wipe at that point. It does give pandas some availability in the fact that later game they have some spotted removal, but there's just better stuff in white, I think, that can get rid of stuff easier for you than having to spend 5 minimum to get rid of 2, and if you're trying to get rid of 3 things and you're paying 7 and 3 gems, that just seems really, really expensive for only 2 things. Sure, you're removing them, but at the same time, it's a really huge cost to be able to kill that many things. I don't think it's worth it. Next up, we have Rallying Song of the Panda. 2-drop quick cast. It says J resonators you control gain +2/+2, and pandas you control gain +2/+2. So essentially, all your pandas are gonna gain +4/+4. I think that's pretty cool for a 2-drop. It's just a nice little panda support card. Nothing terribly breaking, but at the same time, you know, hey, you know, pandas get a little bit of extra oomph to try to push in some damage and finish the game off. Especially since they have, you know, the Shin combo to load up on a ton of pandas really fast. It's just cool that they're getting this extra support. Next up, we have Rose Quartz, the Panda Queen. So we would assume that Tigris Pearlshine is married to her, I guess, but still very interesting design. So she's a 5-drop 10/10. For every panda you control, though, she can be 1 color less. So naturally, controlling the panda of Tigris, she's going to cost 4 in a panda deck. 4-drop 10/10. When she enters, pandas you control gain +4/+4, and at the end of each of your turns, you recover all pandas you control. So this is pretty interesting, again, for kind of comboing out with pandas. You can also grab her with Shin because she is a panda herself. So you could necessarily like play a bunch of Shin, comboing, bringing out stuff from your deck, and then you could have so many that you could just play Rose Quartz for free from your hand, and then still have all that extra will and like all kinds of crazy end of combo stuff that can happen with Rose Quartz. Plus, if your opponent isn't, you know, killing your pandas, then suddenly she just becomes way cheaper and she can drop down and just say, hey, so all of my pandas are going to recover, so they can swing in and then serve as blockers, and really kind of play that mid-range game that pandas like. So pretty interesting there, support. And obviously she only works for pandas, so if you're not playing pandas, you can just skip over this card. Next up, we have the White Dog of Sasaru Palace. So it's a 2-drop 6/6 that says whenever you gain a gem, this card gains +1/+1. Not really a big deal, just kind of generic support. You know, the fact that if he gains a gem, he can become like a 7/7 and kind of trade up with something, or if you can kind of combo into a bunch of different gems for the turn, he could potentially get really big. But overall, this is just not very good, in my opinion. I think there are better 2-drops that pandas could be playing instead that give it more options. Now we have the fire stuff, and we get Elixir the Majin. So 4-drop 10/10 that has Crest Fire to deal 600 damage to every resonator your opponent controls, and Crest Darkness to destroy target resonator. So this card I think is really, really interesting. It is a Wicked Spirit as well, so it combos really nicely with Welser, and here's why. So if Welser is going to play some crests, he's probably going to play 3 of them or so, probably black, green, and red. Maybe black, red, and blue, but he's going to have both of these crests. And don't forget that when Welser comes in, he gets to put a Wicked Spirit from his hand into the field for free. Not only that, but he's probably going to have the crests that are going to trigger Elixir, and he also gives -3/-3 to every resonator, J/resonator your opponent has on the board. So You combine Elixir with Welser, you're doing 9 to everything on your opponent's side of the board outside of their J-Ruler. And then if your Welser has Swiftness, because you have 3 gems, then you're dealing 12 to everything on your opponent's side of the board just by flipping over Welser. I think that is crazy amount of advantage. And I definitely think that while I thought Beelzebub was a good trigger target for Welser, I just think Elixir just outclasses it completely. Plus, she could potentially kill something that's just way out, you know, something that Welser can't kill immediately. She can just kill it herself, which is awesome. Next up, we have Elixir's Fighting Spirit. It's a 1-drop quick cast Remnant. Target J/Resonator gains +4/+0 and first strike. This is essentially just a functional improvements over Tiger Charge, which was in Curse of the Frozen Casket, which is a 1-drop that just says Resonator gains a 400 attack and first strike. So this just added Remnant, and it gives J-Rulers as well. It's a pretty interesting card. I definitely think post-rotation, you know, a year from now, this could potentially be very, very good. And in your pre-releases, this card is going to be very good, just because you can use it twice. But at the same time, most of the time you'd rather have that defensive buff. First strike doesn't really do a ton in this game, and you could just use something like Rapid Growth anyway, which already has Remnants and does J's, and you know, you don't really necessarily need to run this either. Plus, Rapid Growth is great because it allows you to dodge your opponent's combat tricks by adding that extra defense to your creatures. Next up, we have Fire Wave. So it is a 6-drop. As you pay this card, you may banish a Wicked Spirit instead to make it a 4-drop, and it just deals 1200 damage to each Resonator your opponent controls. Now, if this was also J/Res your opponent controls, this would be much better of a board wipe. But seeing as it is, you know, you sacrifice 1 creature and then you burn the board for 12 is still not terrible. My only concern is that it doesn't hit J-Rulers, so I think that becomes a little bit less optimal there. Next up, we finally got to see Welser's Stone. It is the Majin Stone. It produces red, or you can tap and banish it to produce double red to play only Wicked Spirits. Now keep in mind, if you're playing Welser, Welser can use that double red for any of the colors of Wicked Spirits on his ruler side. So this is potentially, you know, pretty good to be able to help him ramp into a Wicked Spirit that he needs or something like that. Now we have our ruler, who is creating a lot of stir as being very, very fun and interesting for deck building. I personally can't wait to start building with her. This is Ayu, the Lunar Swordsman. She's a were-rabbit who judgments for 2, has Energize of blue. At the beginning of the game, you draw a card. So regardless, you're going to start with 6 or 7 cards, which is interesting. And she says, you may not have more than 1 copy of any card in your deck. So all 40 cards in your deck are going to be all different. This is very interesting. Competitively viable, who knows? We definitely want to see what her support is, but it's a very interesting deck idea, and she's probably going to see support that kind of goes off that fact that all of the cards in your deck are different. And then she flips over into the Shaman Swordswoman, who is a 10/10 with Imperishable. That's important to note. And then when she enters your field, she can search for a Soul Resonator, reveal it, and put it into your hand. And then she can discard a Soul Resonator to give herself +5/+5, flying, and first strike. And she can do this multiple times in a turn. So I'm assuming her spirits will probably give effects when they're discarded. And then her God's Art is called Once in a Lifetime. I know it's kind of hard to see here. She can name a card, reveal cards from the top of her deck until she reveals that card, put it into her hand, and then RFG the rest from the game. So with that in mind, I wonder how exactly what support she might have with the RFG area. Like maybe she can get buffed, or some of her spirits, like if they get RFG'd from the deck or sent from the deck to the RFG, come out into the field. Like all kinds of potential things that could happen with this, and I definitely want to see what happens there. So first up, here's our first real support card for Ayu. It's the Sword Strike. 1-drop blue quick cast, just says reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. If none of them share a name, destroy target Resonator, put the revealed cards on the bottom of your deck. So keep in mind, all of her cards are going to be different. So this is just essentially a 1-drop kill anything. The problem is that you only get 1 of in your deck, so you gotta kind of try to make use of that. I also think this is one of the reasons why we have the treasury item that comes in as a clone. So with Ayu's Sword Strike, or with Ayu, if you have a Resonator you want to clone while it's on the board, you could use the treasury item to clone it, or an addition to clone it, or something like that. So that's probably why we're seeing those kind of clone effects, and I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see more of those kind of things for Ayu. Next up, we have the Valorous Tiger Spirit, so our first Soul Resonator, 5-drop 12/12. It's got Precision, which is interesting, and it can be a 4-drop 12/12 if your ruler is IU. And then when it's put into the graveyard from your hand, so discarded, it provides Precision until the end of the turn, which essentially, you know, is going to be probably like pseudo inheritance, where like she discards the spirits and then she kind of gains their simple skills or their stats or something like that. So we'll have to definitely see what else comes out of that. Jumping into the Lynn, we have CL, the Sorceress Priestess. Looks a lot like Feasting, maybe Feasting's ancestor or something. We got a little cat over here. So 3-drop 5/6 elf with quick cast. When it enters the field, produce 2 will in any combination of attributes. So that's pretty interesting. Kind of like a precursor to what Melfi and Feasting were able to do, where they could help produce stuff. And then it says whenever you play a wind chant, it gains +2/+2 until the end of the turn. So its stat lines are pretty low, but you know, it kind of makes up for it for the fact that it essentially costs 1 and could potentially help you fix into a different color of a kill spell that you need in your hand. But again, it also opens you up to Severing Winds, so we'll have to see what happens there. Next up, we have CL's Familiar Mckay. 2-drop 2/2. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put a card from among them into your hand, and then the rest on the bottom of your deck. So for 1 more cost, you get to look at 3 cards instead of just the draw a card off of Tama, and then banish it to deal 400 damage to target Resonator. So you pay 2 to be able to pick 1 card out of 3, and then you can banish it to deal double the damage of a Tama. This is pretty interesting. I definitely think that this card is something that's going to be used especially in your pre-releases, as you know, you're going to have a smaller deck, and it just cycles them to the bottom of the deck, as well as being able to be banished for extra damage on a Resonator. We'll have to see if this can replace Tama fully, or in some decks, while Tama still exists in the format, though. Next up, we have Phase Shift, 2-drop green Spirit Magic. That's important to note. And it says change the target of target chant targeting a J Resonator you control. The new target must be legal. So think of this like Magic Rebound. The only thing is it switches only things targeting Resonators or J Rulers, rather than Magic Rebound was like if anything targets, you could rebound it to something else. And it won't draw a card. But it is a Spirit Magic, which means that Gil will be able to potentially play it for 1, which might have some influence there. Next up, we have Ultra Awakening, also a Spirit Magic and an Elemental, oddly enough, 6-drop. So for Gil, that becomes a 5-drop. Just says target J/Res gains +2000/+2000 until the end of the turn. So I think Gil's finally got kind of his way to finish things off. He's a natural 11/11. He can become a 31/31 with this spell, and he can banish his elementals from the graveyard to help cast it, like especially during upkeep. If you think about, he usually plays a control style deck, you know, banish an elemental, cast this, recover, and then, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff could happen from there. Like play a Flying Cloud, make him a 33/33 with flying, like whatever you really need. So this is definitely pretty interesting, and probably something to watch out for in your pre-releases too, since it's only 1 green, 5 colorless. Next up, we have excuse me. Next up, we have Dance in the Moonlight. So it's a 4-drop that says this card deals 800 damage to each Resonator, including your own, but you can awaken it for 2 mystery counters, and it says destroy all Resonators instead. So potentially a 4-drop board wipe. I actually kind of like this card. Eternal Recurrence kind of fills the same slot, but it's just 1 cheap, you know, 1 more expensive. And you know, sometimes you don't necessarily need to do the full neg, and 800 damage is just fine. So we'll have to see if this replaces Eternal Recurrence, or if it's fine, because as I've seen in the feature batch, Rhea can definitely get a ton of mystery counters, so removing 2 to do a board wipe isn't that terrible. Next up, we have the Spawn of Beelzebub, 1-drop 3/3 Wicked Spirit. So it can be paid by red. When it put into the graveyard from the field, you put 2 +1 -1/-1 counters on a Resonator. So essentially, this guy can trade up into 5/5s, or suddenly make a Sylvia a 4/4 when it dies, or do lots of silly things. And then you imagine too that there's the spell that he can sacrifice a Wicked Spirit to make his spell cheaper, sacrifice this, give something that's a 14/14, 2 -1/-1 counters, 12 damage to everything. Ta-da! You've killed their board. So we'll have to see if this fits into decks, but it's definitely an interesting card. Second to last, we have Spider's Web. My personal favorite card in the Darkness Spoilers. So it's a 1-drop quick cast that you can awaken for just 1 mystery counter. So you choose 1 or 2 if you awakened it. You bring back a Resonator from your graveyard to your hand. You give J/Res -6/-3 until end of turn, or you force a J-Res to attack. So I think what's going to be used most often, though, is this combination of J/Res gains -6/-3, and then target J/Res must attack you. So then you can like force them to swing in their own guys into one of your people and kind of trade up without losing your creature. Definitely something to imagine with like Rinka or Mikage. That could be really, really good. So I'm definitely interested to see what comes out of that. And then we have last card is the Welser copy. It's a 4-drop 9/8 that says for every other Wicked Spirit you control, it becomes +2/+2. Pretty vanilla, but again, if you're playing a heavy Wicked Spirit deck, sometimes this could come in as being like a 15/14 or something huge, based on whatever you have on the board at the time. So pretty interesting stuff. All in all, though, that is the week of spoilers. Let me know what you guys think. I know I'm looking forward to seeing more spoilers coming out, you know, almost by the time this video is out, and looking forward to talking to more about them next week. If this format continues to work, let me know. Otherwise, I'll try to do them on a daily basis. But until next time, guys, this is DMO73 signing off. Huge thanks to the patrons of the channel. You see their names on the screen here, some of them, and the rest are down below in the description for their support of the channel and the content. If you want to get a chance to get your name in the screen here and access to our private Discord server, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon by clicking that little P on the screen. Thanks so much. See you next time.